Thank you. Also just coming into us moments ago, reports of a handwritten note found near one of the unexploded bombs, not yet confirmed by Fox News, making allusions to the 2013 Boston Marathon bombers who also employed pressure cookers in an act of terror. Joining me now, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, who's a CIA-trained former senior intelligence officer, Brigitte Gabriel, the author of Because They Hate, and Brad Thor, who is a best-selling author and former member of the Homeland Security Department's Red Cell Unit. Good to see you all. So let me start with you, Colonel, on this. And this guy who was 28 years old, couple years of community college, immigrated here from Afghanistan when he was 7, kept going back to Afghanistan, kept going back to Pakistan, and you heard the description in our first segment about the appearance that he was becoming more devout after those trips.
Radicalized. Right. Well, that's the key. I mean, look, Megan, this is not the first time we faced this. Back right after the 9/11 attacks, I ran something called Operating Base Alpha. We were a joint operation looking at al-Shabaab because there were great radicalized communities in places like Detroit and Minneapolis. So we prevented this sort of thing from happening, even though al-Qaeda was trying to do it, by the fact we did these hybrid operations with the FBI. I can't go into details because they're classified, but we were very effective in trying to get ahead of this very thing. We saw the radicalization going on. We were able to put agents downrange. We were able to work with Special Operations Command to do some very exotic, very effective things. So this is not the first time we've seen this pattern. Faisal Shahzad did the same thing in Times Square. So what we're seeing here, Megan, it's not a lack of capability or understanding of how radicalization happens or how to get ahead of it. It's a policy decision to not do the right thing to get ahead of it.
You know, Brigitte, there is a question about if he kept traveling overseas and did have a brush with law enforcement. The woman dropped the charges, but he had a brush with law enforcement that was violent and going to terror hotspots. Then he comes back. And what would have happened if the cops or the FBI had looked into him and found this mother of his child who said he hated the U.S. military? By the way, one of the bombs was placed at a Marines race. He hated homosexuals. 2 of the bombs were placed in Chelsea, which is an area very popular among gay men and lesbian women. He disliked America, and on he went.
Well, all the signs were there. It's not like they didn't know him. They were familiar with him. They had his pictures. Immediately, they put it up on national media. So he was under the radar, and they could have saved lives if they would have done their job. The problem, again, like what Tony said, it's coming down from the top. It's the policy where the blind is leading the blind. The agents are walking around with shackles around their ankles. They can only do certain things. They are forbidden from taking action when they know they need to take action, lest they lose their job or they be reprimanded. It's the policy of the Obama administration.
You know, Brad, some of in the media are coming out tonight saying, hey, be a New Yorker, you know, be cool. This is what happens. I actually think it's a testament to the safety of America that people are so alarmed by this still, and that this isn't just, oh, another day, another bombing. Because then you're Israel. I mean, with all due respect and love to our friends in Israel, this is how they've been having to live for a long time, except they're more prepared.
Well, we've talked about this before, Megan, and that is my biggest fear, is that we end up under a constant state of siege like Israel with these repeated attacks against soft targets. And probably one of the biggest disservices that was done to New York and New Jersey was the dismantling of the NYPD's demographics unit. You know, we need to be penetrating Muslim communities, not to entrap people, not to harass them or violate their civil liberties, but we need to be putting agents in there so that we can spot these things. We need tripwires, and political correctness is forcing us to pull out all the tripwires, so you have no warning of this. You don't know that this is going to happen until it happens. And that is the most dangerous thing facing America right now, is political correctness.
What do you make about the sophistication of the detonation technique and of these reports about the bombs potentially having something called HMTD in them, which I'm told makes a very powerful bomb, very deadly?
Well, that tells me 2 things. First, this was a dry run. This was something that he was trained to do. I'm sorry, this was not a lone wolf. The fact he went forward, and again, Brad is correct. I can't confirm what he was saying, but that's kind of what we were doing before. We've got to start looking at where this is not Shaolin monks coming together and doing something in China and flying back. This is a group. We know who they are. We know where they're at, and we start to have to take this very seriously, because what he did, Megan, they're using new explosives in new ways and trying to test to see what happened. This was a dry run. So you can darn well will expect to see more of this unless, as Brigitte says and as Brad said, we get a lot more aggressive to start looking at how to get ahead of these folks. And it's not simply about just profiling the population. It's actually penetrating them with human intelligence. My friend Mike Flynn and I have talked about this. We've got to get ahead of them. Simply keeping up with them, people are going to die. They're going to try new things to get around us. So we got to get ahead of them, and you have to do it aggressively.
And that is one of the questions that we have: is what has the administration done to find these needles in the haystack? Since we saw these terror attacks in Orlando and elsewhere. We're going to pick that up with the former CIA director next. Thank you all so much for being here.